Back live tonight on In Focus, and thanks for staying on. Wage negotiations between public sector unions and the Department of Public Service and Administration continue to drag. To date, 53% of unions represented in the bargaining council have taken government's 7.5% offer to members for consultation. This while Nehawu and minority unions such as the South African Policing Union and the South African Emergency Personnel's Union have rejected the new offer. For more on this, we're joined now by the South African Policing Union spokesperson, Lesiba Thobakgale. Lesiba, good evening, and thank you very much for coming on tonight with us here on In Focus. So the majority parties are saying that the final offer presented, 7.5% for year one, translation of the current pensionable cash gratuity into a pensionable salary. The 7.5 implemented in a sliding scale where the lower salary levels would receive a larger percentage to close the wage gap. They're saying this looks like an acceptable offer. Why are you guys rejecting
it? Thank you, Butabo, for having us, and greetings to your viewers back at home. Butabo, I think our point of departure before, we could go to where you are, is that during last year when the employer enforced the 3% on public servants, indeed we were not happy, thus we lodged a dispute, and that has ended us at the end of the day where we were on strike, and other unions, we were also going to be on strike. We've seen that Nehawu started the strike, and we were also in support of Nehawu, including other unions which are not accepting that the 2022-2023 was finalized. And we had issued a notice of strike where we were supposed to go on strike on the 17th. And at the end of the day, we reached a settlement agreement with the employer where they agreed that we will go and negotiate about 2022-2023. Which in its nature meant that there is going to be an augmentation where there was going to be a percentage which we demanded, which was 4% to be on top of whatever that we will be negotiating on for this current financial year. And as we're speaking, the way the narrative is being put out there, it has been sweetened in a way whereby it looks like there is something really in the kitty for public servants, whereas in reality, Butabo, there is nothing for public servants. Remember, the 7.5 on its own, it consists of the cash gratuity. If we remember our previous conversations over the years, Gustavo, concerning the issue of the cash gratuity, it is being taken to the baseline, that 4.7 in nature. It is being taken there, which clearly leaves the output of 2.8, which is the real salary increase offer that the employer is putting on the table. And we cannot count the issue of the cash gratuity because that is the money that was there already. It has been budgeted for. It forms part of what has been achieved over the years. It is not like it should be portrayed as if there is a new budget that comes from somewhere. It is not like it is money that public servants were not receiving. So out of the 7.5, whereby it is combining the 4.7 and also the 2.8. And at some stage, the employer happens to change it when it suits them, when they are trying to portray it and taking down so that they can portray that there is 3.3%. It continues to fluctuate, whereas they are eating from the side of the very same cash gratuity in order to increase what looks like it is an appealing 3.3%. When we look at the cost of living currently, the price of food, the price of petrol, everything is up. When we look at how much the repo rate has went up, it will be going up for the 5th time compared as it started from last year. So that on its own, the food basket of public servants has since went down, and we cannot allow this so-called sweetened type of a deal that is placed on the table for us to go and accept it. Because in these wage negotiations, we have seen the employer walking away from what we have signed in that settlement agreement when we stopped the strike, and even when we withdrew our notice to go on strike as we were supposed to have went on the 17th, because now when we were back in council, they did not want to entertain the issue of the 2022-2023, which we clearly agreed with them. It is a legal binding contract, but there other unions who happen to call themselves the majority, they were the ones who were even supporting the employer that the 2022-2023 augmentation is not supposed to occur. whereas we have agreed in principle. So in a nutshell, Mutabo, there is no real salary increase that is in favor of public servants, because we cannot count the issue of the cash gratuity, because that is money that was there at Treasury when the Minister of Finance tabled the budget speech. It formed part of what has already been achieved before. Whatever that is coming to public servants, we cannot accept it. We rejected it in the council meeting that was held last week Friday, to say that employer, you are disingenuous in these processes being supported by the purported majority labor unions in the Public Service Coordinated Bargaining Council. And we cannot subscribe to that, whereas we know that public servants are suffering.
Why are you at odds with one another? Since the calculations, I don't know how you're calculating this, because they believe that if, as you put it, the tax gratuity of 1,000 plus the tax portion was removed as claimed by those who are seeking disunity and dominance, they're saying the level 1 basic salary would be increased by 7.5% per annum to 22,397. This would translate, they say, to 1,562 cents per annum. However, through the negotiations, they say you've actually achieved more. The employer acceded to a 14.8% increase for salary level 1, which translates into 1,539 per month, not even per annum.
That is what is being purported, Utabo, like we said. When we did our calculations, we looked at what the percentage that the current cash gratuity is at. And if it is being removed from a cash gratuity, remember that 1,200 rand, where a member who is at the lowest polling salary level 1 was getting around 1,200, it will go down to around 600 and something, because remember, there's also the issues of the tax, there's the issues of the pension thereof. Instead, what workers were taking as a take-home, it is going down clearly, because indeed on its own, that percentage of the cash gratuity was not even a living wage, even at the beginning. And we know that the calculations that they are portraying there, they are portraying it as if like there is something in the kitty for public servants. Yeah. That is not true, because indeed, if that was the case, they wouldn't have a problem in giving us over 10%. Because 10% on its own, it will have even more percentage, which will be coming from the new budget, not from the old budget of the cash gratuity. The reality is workers will be receiving less compared to what those calculations are being purported in that manner. Because where have you seen unions, when they go sit and talk about the issues of calculations, one has to portray like somebody will be getting something like 14%. That is what is a hogwash, and we need to dispel it in its totality, because at the end of the day, the workers are going to be the ones who will be suffering at the end of the day. And we are not going to sign that agreement as the unions that are still disgruntled about the employer not wanting to augment the 2022-2023.
So I was coming to that. So how does this then affect what you signed for the 2022-2023? Of course, you signed that this will be negotiated as part of the 2023-2024 negotiations. Hence, we saw the strikes stopping.
It is clear, Butabo, that the employer is disingenuous in this regard. We are busy. We had a meeting on Monday as parties whom are still pursuing the 2022-2023. Remember, majority of the unions, they said, well, they moved away from the 2022-2023. We are still busy seeking legal advice from our legal people who will clearly advise us. But we see it clearly that the employer is again, as they did with the 2020, when they did not want to implement the last leg of the 2018 agreement. We are seeing the very same tendency of walking away from agreements in order to go and please others. For what reasons, we do not know. But we are not going to leave it behind. We are not going to let it go. We are not going to sign that agreement. That one, we are clear about it. And we are also bringing to the attention of the members that they must not be fooled by what is being purported as if workers are going to receive something better in their pockets when they are going to be robbed even more, when the high cost of living continues to fluctuate and indeed go higher when we see the price of food and the price of everything going up. We are saying that it is time that this government should stop conniving with the so-called majority unions at the expense of workers, because workers are suffering. There's the issue of government employee housing scheme, where we are demanding 2,500 on it. It doesn't find an expression to say when is it going to be implemented. It also forms part of the settlement agreement. And when a worker who never had a house, when they go on retirement, whatever that was in their savings, they forfeit it. So we are also demanding that it should be paid to those workers, because that is an individual saving that was there. But if indeed the employer was serious about it, these issues will be finding expression to say when are they implementing government employee housing scheme to have public servants receive decent houses, not through the commercial banks, whom indeed are making workers to even suffer with that 20-year period and the high interest rate. Those are some of the issues that are there where government is not even coming to commit. But all we see is the portrayal of what looks like there is a cream on top, but whereas at the end of the day, there is nothing for public servants. And we will continue to fight as the unions that are rejecting this draft agreement that the employer has tabled. We told them that they need to improve. They must come back with the issue of the 2022-2023 back to the DStv so social dialogue can continue. Not to rush to go conclude something that at the end of the day, public servants would end up suffering.
So what does this mean then around the minimum service agreement? Was that even touched on?
It doesn't find expression here. Remember, it is us whom even previously over the years in the DStv, we had an agenda point which speaks of the minimum service level agreement to say it is about time where the right to strike, it is not limited, whereby we can agree with the employer to say what percentage can remain at work during a strike action, which percentage can then go and join the strike action. That on its own, it clearly shows that there is no commitment that comes from government. Because if indeed they are going to choose clauses in the settlement agreements to say these are the issues that we will look into, because they were too quick to say that one we will really try to abide by the timeframes that we have placed in the settlement agreement in order for it to happen. But when it comes indeed for it to be practical, it does not find expression. It doesn't find expression in the current draft agreement to say, indeed, this is what the government is committing to. So that's why we are saying that government must not pick and choose what they like, what suits them, because at the end of the day, we are all in the public service and we are fighting for the employees whom are in the public service. The right to strike, they should exercise it, and the sooner we conclude the minimum service level agreement, it is the better, whereby now the right to strike will not be limited like we have seen being limited over the years, and even with the current, with the previous strike that was embarked on in the public service. So we are saying that we need to see the commitment of the employer. They need to be truthful to the workers. They need to be truthful indeed when they are negotiating. They need to stop negotiating on bad faith, because that on its own, it continues to strain the relationship that is there between labor and the employer in the DStv. And we don't need that during this current juncture.
Lesiba Thobakgale, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. He speaks for the South African Policing Union, part of those minority parties who are rejecting this latest wage offer.